Hi, it's Susan from Quilt Fabrication. We're going to dig through that scrap bag and make up some crumb blocks. So what are crumbs? Well, you're looking at them. Crumbs are those little pieces left over from prior quilt projects, odd shapes, odd cuts, things that are ultimately going to get sewn together to make a block. Now something like this piece, I would probably end up cutting across here and using this triangle in a piece and possibly using this somewhere else. This piece, I'd probably end up cutting it off and using two pieces separately. This piece, who knows, I may add a couple strips and then lop it in half. It's all up to you and what happens with your block. I tend to make my crumb blocks in a free form manner. I start by grouping some cut sides and shapes together and just kind of grouping them. We're going to see like this. Ultimately, this is probably going to get trimmed. It can go over there. So I've got a little start on my block. Now, freeform piecing is not something that you're comfortable with. What you can always do is you can lay out your pieces ahead of time in a block form and then work on sewing those, knowing that you're going to have to probably trim some pieces here and there to get them to size. So I brought some of my pieces over to the sewing machine and we're going to just stitch these together. Remember that when you're doing things at angles, to leave dog ears at the end so that they'll end up fairly square or straight across. So we'll just give this a little bit of a stitch. And I also like to use just a little bit of a finger press. I don't need to go to the iron. See what I'm talking about with the dog ears? See how this piece ends up straight across? So just keep that in mind. Let's see. Let's do this piece next. We'll repeat again with some dog ears. Get this guy on here. Pretty equal. We'll see if I'm just as lucky. Okay. There we've got that piece. That's pretty darn good too. Take a look at that. See that? All right. So I'm going to give that a little finger press. I like to just kind of run my fingernail over that. So that's up there. So we were saying with one of my previous layout that I was going to put that piece together with that. So let's do that. Put that on here. All right. Have a look at that. That's growing nicely. Another little fingernail scrape there. Now this piece is a little bit on the big side. I don't want to waste him just yet. So maybe from my little stash over here, I'll find something else. Now this piece is a little long. See that? So I'm not really wild about using that just yet. I could add another piece up here, which is fine. So maybe I have something. Okay, so I have this long piece. So what I can do is I can put this up here. Okay, and once again, give that a finger press. There we go. And I'm just going to cut this off because we're not going to have to be too exact. Remember, these are scraps. All right, so we've got that going up there. I could add that in. That's pretty good. I'm happy with that. I'm going to go up here. Line those guys up. So one thing to remember with stitching crumbs together, you are going to need to trim because some pieces are going to be a little on the long side, and that's okay if you waste a little bit and trim some off. So if you look at this piece, you'll see this is a little bit longer, but you know, it's not that bad. It's only maybe 1/8 of an inch off, and I could probably get away with that. Now, does this piece work? Well, look at that. Isn't that awesome? So let's put that together. These pieces are just falling into place. And that's the beauty of scrap quilting. It's just kind of a nice little way to just get a block put together using all these little pieces. And before you know it, you've got this nice chunk of fabric to work with. Make a quilt from it. Look at that. Give another little bit of scrape across there. Looking good. How's this piece of... Wow! Jeez, am I ever really lucky. All right, let's put it on there. Things are really lining up today. I can't believe it. Trust me, that does not happen all the time. Normally I don't sew this slow, but because my camera will jiggle if I go faster, I'm taking it a little on the easy side. Another little fingernail, scrape, finger press. And look at that. We've got a piece that right now is, look at that, it's 5 inches by 5 inches. Just like that. Isn't that amazing? That's perfect. Let's work on this other piece because I want to show you this angle. So I've got these two together. I'm going to take this and just stitch it across the diagonal. We'll see what comes up. We might have to... That looks pretty nice. I'm going to keep that. Give it that good old finger press. And then I'm going to take my scissor and trim off the back. Now, this piece, yeah, that's still a usable piece. That's not too small. And it may work that I have another piece that'll fill here and then I can put something along the top. Or it may work that I have to cut that off that way. Who knows? It depends on what happens with the next block that I make. I'm going to throw it aside for right now. This piece, let's see how this fits with this guy. This way. Now I've got a little selvage over here, so I'm going to have that trimmed off, so I will move that guy up a little bit, but we will stitch these together. Now you could get creative with a lot of this and start inserting like maybe a black or a white strip. That would be kind of cool. You could have fun with this. I'm not sure which way I want to turn it. I'm going to go that way. A lot of times seams tend to like to lay the way they like to lay. And that looks pretty good. I would take the rotary cutter and a ruler and square that up and continue on. Alright, so I have my two nice pieces from before. This is about a 5-inch square. And I've pulled in some of the odd angle pieces so I can show you how to deal with those. Now, the first thing that I see is these two would probably go nicely together, possibly like that. Alright, and then maybe this is the same print, so I don't really want to use that. Then maybe I would add this in. Alright. Then let's see, possibly doing something like that. And maybe we'd work that guy in. We'll see. I'll get sewing and follow along. I'm going to start this by sewing these two pieces together. For this one, I'm not going to be concerned about dog ears because there really aren't any. And we're just going to stick it underneath here and get started. Sewing a nice 1/4 inch seam. Okay. And we will finger press that open again. And then we'll add that triangle over here on this side, like I'd shown before. That's a nice pretty batik. And right now I'm not too concerned about the size because I'm probably going to end up cutting down some of these for other pieces to fit. That's kind of what happens when you have really wonky shapes is you end up having to trim off a portion of them. All right, we'll do another finger press. There we go. And let's see, we'll add this one there, or shall we add that guy? Where would he look? So now if I added him there, I've got this chunk that doesn't look so good. So what I would probably end up doing if I did sew that on there is I would stitch another strip that started here, or trim this off to make it even with this, but another strip that would go that way. And then maybe that other little chunk would go for something else. I don't know if I want to do that yet. Let's keep looking. Let's see what this piece does. Remember this funky piece? So I could put that in there, but I would end up losing that. That may not be the best use for him. Oh, he kind of works nicely down here. Let's try that. I'm just going to sew it. I'm not going to check for anything else. I just want to sew it on there. All right, another little finger press. Adds just a little bit more there. Okay, so this guy, well, he could go there. I could add a piece up here. We could do that. We could do that. Not that wild about where he's going. I think what I'm going to do is add a piece up here. Let's see. Do I have something big enough? So, if I do that, then I've got, you see this funky angle right now? These are not even. All right, so I went through my pieces and I found a kind of a workable solution. So here's this piece. I'm going to put it here, and that will help make that line a little straighter. And I'm going to put this piece along with this one and that one, and that way we're getting a fabric chunk. So let's put this together and see what happens. All right, so first thing I want to do, I'm going to sew these two together. And yes, I know these are a little bit oversized, or one piece is bigger than the other, let's put it that way. And I'm probably going to have to trim, but remember, these are scraps. They are termed unwanted, and I'm okay with having to trim away a small amount to get to what I want. If it ends up the whole or a portion of the unit gets there, great. So what I want to do is I want to put that on there so that's pretty much a straight line over here. So I have to bring it down a little bit, and we're going to put it maybe at about that kind of an angle. Let's see what that does. And if I have to trim it when I'm done, then that's okay. All right, let's see what that looks like. So that's not too bad. That's not too bad off of the straight. I'm going to give that a little trim. Excuse me while I do that. There we go. So that's nice. All right, now we'll get this part stitched over here. We'll see what happens with this. So I might have to trim a little bit of this unit. All right, little finger press. Right now I don't care that this is wonky like that, because there's a selvage here. I'm going to have to trim that edge anyway. But I do have quite the bit of fabric buildup in this area. So we're going to have to really finger press that. Okay. And then we've got that looking like that. We'll line up those seams there and those seams there. Because this seam was a little bit over to the side, I have a little bit exposed. It's not perfectly straight. That's okay. Remember, this is free-form crumb piecing. And yes, I probably should have trimmed that out before I attached this piece. That just adds extra bulk. But looky there, we've got the unit together. So now what I could do, I could put my ruler on here and determine kind of the best way that I want to cut it and trim it down to 5 inches square. All right, that would be awesome. So here's a couple things that I want you to keep in mind if you are going to be trimming blocks. So try not to have a small amount of fabric close to your edge off of a seam. You want to have at least an inch between a seam and your edge, because what happens is you will have a little sliver of the fabric. You'll have a huge amount of buildup of fabric layers in the seam, and it's going to be difficult to sew that block in. If I want, I could also keep going on this unit. If I wanted to, I could add this piece in on this side. All right, I could add this piece in, and I could continue to build a bigger block. So I'm just making a whole bunch of little units to make a bigger block, or I'm making just small blocks. It's your choice. Any way you do it, this is a fantastic way to use up your crumbs. In the next little segment, I'll show you some quilts that I made with crumbs. So I have a couple of crumb quilts to show you. This one behind me is called Regatta. It's made with 6-inch squares. These are sewn pretty much 90-degree angle seams, except for this one. This happened because I used one of these originally, sewed along on the outside and cut on each diagonal, which ultimately turned my horizontal and vertical seams to 45s. Now, if I had just sewn and cut on one diagonal, I would have ended up with horizontal and vertical lines again. So keep that in mind if you are striving to have uniformity in your quilt of horizontal and vertical lines, that's going to happen when you make a half square triangle. But that's easy to fix. Another quilt that I made, this little guy, is a pink version of a Crumb jumble quilt. In there, I've got blocks that have seams every which way because the pieces are every which way. Same with this one. This is a blue version. And I've got a cute little kitty that's showcased in there. Once again, all sorts of shapes on this one too. So you can see there are a ton of options for using up all your little fabric scraps. No scrap is too small because you can make beautiful quilts with them. Thanks for watching.